Hello, Bookends. Welcome to a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. I know I haven't been around, but there's a good reason. This is our new home. A lot going on in the personal life. Good things, not bad things. But this is our new home. This is our guest room that I'm recording in. Simply because I'm going to turn it into a studio because my husband doesn't like guests. So I might as well get some use out of it, right? Yes. So today's book review is going to be on Dyscalculia by Camonghne Felix. We like to start off every book review with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars this particular book get. And we also like to start off with a rating, as in if this was a movie, what would it be rated? So star point out of 10 stars, this is a solid 4. Solid 4. Here's the problem. It is a memoir in the form of poetry. And you know how it's always very hard for us to rate a memoir just because if you don't like the story, boo-hoo, it's someone's life. You know, so you can't say the author should have made this character's life a little bit better or made this happen. If it's someone's life, they literally can't do that. So basically, we rated it a 4 based purely on the premise of the book itself, the writing in the book, and how easily the ideas of the book or ideas in the book are conveyed. So that's where that 4 is coming from. In the way of a rating, for PG-13 or what have you, this book would be rated PG-13, maybe a hard PG-13 to a very soft R. You're not going to find anything that's particularly scandalous in it, but there are a lot of mentions of trauma and thoughts of self-harm and also institutionalization. So there are those things to look at. I don't really think that would harm a 13-year-old per se, but you never know. So I would lean more towards a hard PG-13 to a very, 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 very soft R. So jumping right on in. The reason why I chose this book, okay, normally I give my personal opinions at the end of the review, but I'm going to put them in the beginning today simply because I only got this book for personal reasons. I have Dyscalculia. I have had it all my life, as a lot of people with learning disabilities have had their learning disabilities all their life. And just like with a lot of other people with learning disabilities, mine wasn't discovered until later in life. Not that late, though. You know what? Story time. So, school got hard for me after kindergarten. I loved kindergarten. Kindergarten was bomb. Loved it. Loved it. Highly recommend. First grade going forward, though, the world just didn't seem to make sense anymore. Like reading, loved it. Science, loved it. History, loved it. Math, what's happening? And I couldn't understand why that was the case. My teachers couldn't understand why that was the case. I remember my second grade teacher telling my mother she has the formulas down. I don't know where she's getting these numbers from. When it comes to having dyscalculia, it is a learning disability that affects one's ability to recognize numbers, recognize number sequences, shapes, and directions. So to give you an example, a hexagon, an octagon, and a dodecahedron, they all look the same to me. There is nothing in any one of those shapes that would change my perception to say, this is definitely a hexagon, this is definitely an octagon. Yeah. I remember one time in 3rd grade, my teacher could not understand why I could not get the math down. And when I finally figured out a way to get it down, my papers would just be so cluttered with notes because this is my way of trying to figure out how to get the answer. Everyone else just knows the answer. I got to figure it out. And she didn't like that. She wanted my papers to be less cluttered, but it's like, if you want me to show the work, then you need to see I did the work. This is how I show it. So she ended up calling my sister into my class because this was my sister's last year in elementary school. And well, the school had a elementary and like a middle in it, so I guess it was my sister's last year in middle school. And she called my sister into the class, and I'll never forget it because she had me standing on one side towards the front of the class and my sister standing on the other side towards the front of the class. So we're standing side by side. And she says to Tisha, what is 8 times 8? And tell me how you know what it is. She starts off like that. My sister says 8 times 8 because 8 times 8 equals 64 because that's just what it is. 8 times itself equals 64. Mrs. Kelly? Bravo! Okay, Tamil. Tell me what 8 times 8 is. I'm sorry, I'm whatever about it. I know it's been like a billion trillion years ago, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't still leave a bit of a scar, you know? But yes, so she wanted me to say how I got to the answer for 8 times 8. She wanted me to say what the answer was and how I arrived at that answer. So I said how my brain puts it together. 8 times 8 is 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4. 4 times 4 plus 4 times 4, well, 4 times 4 is 16. 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 16 plus 16 is 32. 16 plus 16 is 32. 32 plus 32 equals 64. 8 times 8 is 64. That got a really big laugh out of the class, despite me not trying to be funny. No one understood what I was saying. They felt it to be very convoluted, I guess. And it was highly embarrassing. It was highly embarrassing to have people kind of laugh at you because of how, or I shouldn't even say laugh at you, laugh at myself, laugh at me because of how my brain worked. But at least I got the answer. So that's a brief example of how a child with dyscalculia goes through life. It's a lot of faking it until you make it, a lot of having to break down already broken down concepts in order to arrive at the answers, and a lot of having to swallow your pride because you simply are unable to grasp what everyone else is grasping in particular areas. So, when I picked up this book, it said Dyscalculia, a love story. And I'm like, yes, because I have dyscalculia and I have a love story of my own. I'm married. I'm happy. I thought that this was going to be something like the KISS quotient or something like that, something where it takes a disability and shows how someone with this disability finds love and how they integrate that love into their life while still navigating this learning disability. That was not it. That was not it. That was not it. This book did not do that. So, each chapter in the book is labeled by a different mathematical concept. Like fractals, things of that nature, a different mathematical concept. Each chapter begins with the conveyance of some sort of mathematical concept. So for someone who has dyscalculia, you're going into this thinking, yes, this is for me. People like me are gonna love this. And the moment you open up is like, I'm confused. What is this? What? Because you don't know. Whew. Okay. Pairing that with the flowery language that's used in the book itself, it creates this air of confusion. So essentially the premise of the book is that there's this woman, she has this romantic partnership with her boyfriend who she's hoping to become her fiance. The reader meets her when she's waking up in the morning and she just wants to look at her phone, just look at his phone to see what time it is, and she sees a message from an affair partner or what have you, saying how much they miss him, and him saying how much they miss them, something that affects, something that lets you know these two people are rocking it in a way they shouldn't be rocking it. If you catch me, okay, you got me. So After much deciphering, because the wording in this book is completely flowery. Like everything is a simile or a metaphor or a hyperbole, like everything. Nothing is just something that's spoken about straightforward. Well, except for when she's on the train. I'm pretty sure that's straightforward, and there's some other parts that I believe that are slightly straightforward. But those bits and pieces are found in between the flowery bits, so it's more so flowers. The book is the equivalent of if you're walking down the street has concrete. What makes that street beautiful? What makes that street different? The peppering of flowers, the sprouting or growing of trees. There are different things amongst the concrete that make it beautiful, that make it stand out. Conversely, if you're walking in a tulip garden or a field of tulips, I'm using tulips because I live in New Jersey and we just had the beautiful tulip thing in the spring, which is gorgeous. If you ever come to New Jersey, go see that. It's worth it. But imagine you're walking through a field of tulips or hyacinths or lilacs or rose bushes, and you just see random pepperings of concrete. That's not beautiful. That's confusing and ugly. You're wondering, why are these random little pepperings of concrete amongst this beautiful garden? And there's no answer for it. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so essentially this story is about a young woman who is going through a breakup, and because of that breakup, she goes through a mental break. And it follows her going through this mental break while she's being institutionalized, the thoughts she's having there, the experiences she's having there, and also when she is released from institution and how her life progresses from there. This book is only about a 2 to 3 hour listen, maybe about a 2 hour and change read. So it's not extensive. The woman is still alive, she's still young, so obviously there's still more to her life going on. So this is basically a snippet. That's all this is. This is a snippet in her life. What bothers me is that I would not have been so irritated by the book if it played more to its name. I was expecting to feel some sort of representation in the book. Like, to give an example, when it comes to people with dyscalculia, we have an issue with directions. We can tell up from down for the most part because it's such a stark contrast. Up is above, down is below. It's such a stark contrast. But if you say left from right, we don't always catch it. If you say north, east, west, south, we don't always catch it. And so that's something that we have to work hard on. It's for a lot of people, I believe it's a subconscious thing. Like, you just learn from infancy or from childhood or from toddlerhood, what have you, what your left and your right is, and it just remains in your mind. It's a part of your cognitive development. You keep it, you hold on to it, and it becomes a part of you. For someone with dyscalculia, it never sticks. And because it never sticks, there's always those times where, in fact, when I'm driving and the GPS says turn left, I will definitely make a right turn unless I do something like this. This reminds me left. How do I remember left? My hand, the hand I write with. Also, what else do I do as a coping mechanism to remember my left from my right? When I hear left, I hear A. So left A. Now I know it's not going to work for everyone, but left A. So when the GPS or someone says turn left, A, turn A, or turn B. That's how my brain works it out. Things like this weren't mentioned in the book. Like, people who have dyscalculia as children have dyscalculia as adults. It does not go away. And the idea that I can't speak against her experience, obviously, because dyscalculia is a spectrum. There are certain things that everyone on that spectrum experience, such as the inability to identify things spatially, such as measurement, like how far, how close things are, or the ability to count things like that. Certain things are always going to be the same. But I understand that since there's a spectrum, that she may have a different experience from mine. I 100% understand that. But you're not going to see someone who has dyslexia explain their life in aggregated paragraphs. Well, not explain their life, but make sense of their life in their head in aggregated paragraphs. Like they're not gonna do that. And the same way, it's the same way with people with dyscalculia. We're not going to take formulas that we couldn't understand as children, that beat us down as children, and use those same formulas, which we don't have a full concept of, to make sense of our lives. Like if I'm having an issue with my husband, I'm not going to think, wow, the Pythagorean theorem. No. If I'm having an issue with my son, I'm not going to be like, maybe if I found the circumference of. No. If a concept is already difficult to grasp, why would I use that concept and all of its difficulties to grasp another situation in my life that is equally difficult, if not more so? It's like trying to eat soup with a fork. Like, yeah, you're gonna get some soup on it, but a lot of it's gonna fall through. Why? Because you're doing it the hard way. So it didn't make sense. It wasn't in my personal opinion, an adequate representation of people with dyscalculia, or an accurate representation of the day-to-day life of someone with dyscalculia. Now, it was an accurate representation of someone who was having a mental break or a mental breakdown or going through a very hard breakup, because I can't say that if I was in the same position that I would not have ended up in the same position. If I was in the position of someone who I thought was going to love me forever cheating on me, and I find out on the day after a special occasion, I believe it was one of their birthdays, either her birthday or his birthday, I believe it was one of their birthdays, I can't say that I wouldn't have reacted as drastically, because the heart wants what the heart wants. And if the heart wants this person that you thought loved you to love you, yeah, it's gonna break. But I don't understand why the book was named Dyscalculia, unless it was something just to grab people. Like to take this obscure learning disability, and I say obscure because not a lot of people know that they have it, and also not a lot of people are diagnosed with it. I got diagnosed when I was 16 years old. I hear that it's harder to diagnose in boys and girls than it is in boys, but that might be because we mask better. I honestly don't know. But if you are getting this book thinking this is going to show me more of what it feels like to be, or to have dyscalculia, or what it feels like to live a day in the life of someone with dyscalculia, it's not. It doesn't show you any of that. This is literally just a memoir that is constructed by vaguely made poetry and odd symbolism. There's one part that made me want to stop actually reading the book at the very beginning of the book, where she's waking up and she says she's giddy with the something of her ancestors. Girl, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't know about your ancestors, but if you black and I'm black, we both black. I don't know anything about our ancestors waking up giddy with something. Like what are they waking up giddy for? I don't know nobody waking up giddy to be on a plantation. I don't. Once again, I know that it is a memoir, and I know that these are her personal experiences and personal feelings, personal musings, and this is the way that she personally makes sense of her life and the things around her and the things within her. It just doesn't ring as true for me, someone who has dyscalculia as well. That said, if you just like books that speak in prose, that are poetic, then you'll enjoy this book. But I would say enjoy it as what it is, a memoir. Ignore the fact that it says dyscalculia. It is not about dyscalculia. It is not about dyscalculia. I will say that. That is not what it's about. So if you just want a memoir that is thoughtfully created and provides some sort of kinship, if you've ever had a psychotic break or a very bad breakup, go for it. But if the sole purpose of you getting this book is to find kinship with the character because you have dyscalculia, or to find out more about dyscalculia, do not get this book. Leave it where it is. Do not spend a credit on it. Do not pick it up in the store. Leave it where it is. Don't get the ebook. Leave it where it is. If you're looking for any kind of accurate representation in the form of for dyscalculia, don't get this book. All right. Now that said, I do hope to hear more from the author. I know that sounds weird, right? After I just dragged, like, oh, I don't want to say I dragged, but after I just said all of that, yeah, that does sound weird that I'd like to hear more. She's not a bad author. She's not bad. I even got the ebook, not the ebook, I'm sorry. I even got the audiobook for it, and she read it very well. A lot of authors do not read their own work very well. So she's not a bad author. It's just not a good... I'm looking forward to her sophomore pieces. I think this is her first literary piece. I want to say it's her first. So if it isn't her first, then I apologize. And let me know in the comments if you know that she has any other literary works, not essays, but any other literary works out. But I would love to see some other literary works by her, like something else by her that isn't so symptom specific. Because I don't know what it was, but it wasn't it. I'll just say that. I don't know what it was, but it was not it. Once again, this has been a 10-minute book review. Thank you so much for watching. I can't even talk. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe.